Hello.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, good evening.
We left off on page 138, Birchas HaGomel and COVID-19. That's where we left off. On the bottom, we saw in the previous subsection that according to Mishnah Berurah, one should wait no longer than 30 days to recite Birchas HaGomel in the presence of a minyan. This ruling was relevant in the earlier stages of the COVID-19 outbreak, as many of those who recovered from the illness were unable to access a minyan. Minyanim were not held regularly in many places. Many were not allowed to leave isolation for weeks after contracting the illness. At the time, some poskim discussed a fascinating angle to the issue, namely whether gathering a minyan on Zoom qualified for the purposes of reciting Birchas HaGomel. Rav Ovadia Yosef, writing before the pandemic, seems to hold that the minyan must be in the same room in order to recite this bracha. Says the Abia Omer, V'gam mashakos of Maran Achidah, Rav Chaim Yosef David Azulai, who lived in the 1700s, who was an early Sephardic posek, B'Birkei Yosef B'Shem Knesset Agdola, Sha'isha Tevarach Bezras Noshim, that a woman should also recite the Birchas HaGomel, but she should recite it while she stands in the Ezras Noshim. When Ma'iri Sheyesh Asor Noshim B'Beis HaKnesses, when there's 10 men in the shul. V'nir de Ma'iri Shein Mechitza Hazra Megia Ratikra, as long as the Mechitza does not go up to the roof. V'chiyai Gavna Samchina Mashakosov Rav Peretz Bagos Smak, Shemechitzo Shebeis HaKnesses She'en B'Magias Lagag, Afal Pi Shegvos Asor Tzvachim V'Yotzre Ein Mafsikos Beis HaKnesses. This goes into the issue that if you have a mechitza that goes all the way to the top of the roof, the Ezras Noshim is not considered part of the shul. If the mechitza is only 10 tvachim, or even if the mechitza is 10 tvachim high or higher, as long as it doesn't go to the roof, it doesn't say that the Ezras Noshim is not in the shul, because they have to be in the presence of 10 men. If the mechitza goes up to the roof, they're not in the presence of the 10 men. So here, Rav Ovadia seems to suggest that you got to have 10 people in the same room, right? One can infer from here that if the minyan was in an adjacent room, one would still not be allowed to recite Birchas HaGomel, even if the people in the minyan can hear the bracha. If so, Rav Ovadia would certainly hold that the bracha may not be recited with 10 people listening on Zoom or a phone conference. And despite the extenuating circumstances during the pandemic, Rav Shlomo Aviner also ruled that one may not recite HaGomel in a minyan gathered via Zoom. She'ela, Efshar levarech Birchas HaGomel b'Zoom, tshuva lo tzarech asar anashim b'makom echad. However, Rav Hershel Schachter suggested that if one cannot participate in a minyan during the first 30 days after recovering from illness, or after any other event for which one would need to recite HaGomel, one would be allowed to have 10 people listen to the bracha on Zoom or other means of live video conferencing. Rav Schachter explains that the purpose of the minyan in this context is to publicize the salvation, which can also be accomplished over the internet. Al kei nireh, shem kvar higia, yom chaf aleph, v'hamagef adayim b'mkomos omedet. Let's say the person's already 25 days after his recovery, and the pandemic is in place, and they cannot gather a minyan. Asr lesaf asr b'yacha. Sheyesh levarach derech Zoom. He says you can make it derech Zoom. Chadad al pi pshuto ein atzarech lasra b'toras davar shebekdusha. This is not the same as requiring a minyan for Baruch Hu or Kedusha. Then you all need to have them in the same room. El b'toras Pesumei Nisa. It's part of Pesumei Nisa. V'hoidah b'rabim. And giving public thanks. Ve'yet shekol hasra makshivim lo derech Zoom. All 10 are listening through Zoom or derech telephone. B'hachi sagi, it will work. Rav Asher Weiss, in a question posted by Rav Ari Zatz, I know Rav Zatz, he's the associate rabbi of Congregation B'nai Yeshurun of Teaneck, also reached the same conclusion of Schechter, that if one will be unable to recite the bracha with the minyan within 30 days of recovering, one may gather 10 people together on Zoom and recite the bracha. He explains that although the Shulchan Aruch cites 2 opinions as to whether one fulfills one's obligation when reciting Hagoma without a minyan, the Mishnah Berurah cites the Ra'ah that one may be lenient if 30 days pass, which seems to be the Mishnah Berurah's practical ruling. Therefore, Rav Rice rules that if one will otherwise not be able to recite a Goma with a minyan within 30 days, one should recite it with a minyan via Zoom. Okay. Susie, could you pour me some 7-Up with some ice, please? Thank you. And Lala, I need a drink. Yes.
Remy, what's up there on the camera, like a fur?
It's a leaf. It was a leaf.
Oh. Okay.
Leaf that was draping over the camera. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam shakol yevaro.
Amen.
Right.
Page 141. How soon must someone recite Birchas HaGomel? Rishonim debate how much time a person has to recite Birchas HaGomel. The Tur writes that the individual may recite a Gomel at any point. V'im icher milevarech, if he delayed, yesh lo tashel levarech kol zman sheyirtzeh. There is no time limit. The Beis Yosef, in his comments there, notes that other Rishonim write that a person has a window of only 3 days or 5 days. Im icher milevarech yesh lo tashel levarech kol zman sheyirtzeh. Zeu svaras Rabbeinu. That's the opinion of the Tur. Aval b'orchas chayim kosu b'shem Ramban. That shlosha yomim mavarchim, you should do it within 3 days. V'ani matzati katuv the time of midamrin be'eruvin haba min haderech lo yispalel ad shlosha yomim. The Gemara says that one who returns from a journey is exempt from tefillah since his mind is not in the proper state to pray properly. We don't paskin that way. People do not have sufficient kavanah during tefillah in any case. So, so 3 days. 5 days. So the Shulchan Aruch, in light of these dissenting views, accepts the ruling of the Tur, while also encouraging a person to adhere to the stringent standard of the Orchos Chaim, which was to do it within 3 days. The Mishnah Berurah writes that reciting a Gomel in a timely manner is more urgent than reciting it in the context of Torah reading. The Adzman Zeh kori ba min hadera. 3 days is considered you came home. The kotzva achronim the filu yitzarch b'shvil zeh levarach shelo b'sefer Torah. Let's say the 3 days that you have, you won't get it to Thursday or Monday, which is normally the minhag to read it, or Shabbos. He says, if Wednesday is your 3rd day, you should say it in shul without the Torah. He traveled on Monday. They read out Yivarach Ba'asar below Sefer Torah. He should make the Birchas HaGomel without a Sefer Torah on Wednesday. Ba'al Yamtin ad Yomeh, don't wait until Thursday. Ayin b'masher kosuv le'el b'si'iv cotton ches. We also saw above in source 32 that the Mishnah recorded the Ra'ah as recommending not to wait more than 30 days at a maximum. This that we say 3 days is lechatchila, but you don't want to delay beyond. Although it seems from the tour that there was no time limit. The Mishnah Berurah quoted the Ra'ah not to wait more than 30 days, even if one needs to delay more than that for some reason, and rely on the Shulchan Aruch's acceptance of an open-ended window for a gomel. The Aruch HaShulchan writes that there is a point at which it becomes too late. Nearly, the Hiflik Zman Rav, Achnishka Cha'inyan, if the whole thing is forgotten, Ein Lo Levarchol, the Ibid Bracha, he lost the opportunity to make the bracha. Birchas HaGomel for women and minors. As another positive mitzvos, particularly those related to prayer and brachos, we must clarify if Birchas HaGomel applies to women and to minors, whose obligations in tefillah are not identical to those of men. As an expression of appreciation for being saved from a dire circumstance, it would seem that anyone may recite Birchas HaGomel. However, the Mishnah Berurah observes that minors do not recite a Gomel. Some explain that our text of the bracha emphasizes that Hashem bestows kindness upon the guilty or the culpable, which cannot be said of minors, because they're not obligated in the mitzvahs until they're bar mitzvah. By contrast, in this respect, just as men are, women are fully responsible for their own decisions and may be described as culpable or guilty. Ostensibly, therefore, it would seem that Birchas HaGomel is as relevant for women as it is for men. Nonetheless, the Mishnah Berurah writes that women are not accustomed to recite a Gomel. Od kasvu, katan eino mechoiv lahoidos, afilu mitzad mitzvahs chinav. V'gam noshim minig ha'olam she'en mevarchim bracha zu. Kotzva achronim atam. The achronim wrote the reason. Mishum deseder bracha zu b'fnei asar kedol kamei. There's a format to this bracha. It has to be done in front of 10 men. The lo urich aralish, it's not sneas. That's what lav urich ar. It's not customary for women to do that. Yesh shekosov mikol mokom nochonu shetevorch b'fnei asar kol pomnin b'fnei eser noshim b'ish achad. The Mishnah Berurah brings a minhag that women should recite the bracha in front of 10 women and 1 man. The Mishnah Berurah readily and categorically excludes minors. He also states that according to the dominant custom in his time, women refrained from reciting Birchas HaGomel due to social norms of modesty. But other poskim differ. Regarding older minors, children who have reached the age of chinuch, Rav Ovadia Yosef disagrees with the ruling of the Mishnah Berurah and rules that they should recite Birchas HaGomel when relevant. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach addresses the issue of women. He acknowledges that women do occasionally recite the bracha, and also questions the possibility that women might recite the bracha in the presence of 10 women instead of 10 men. Even though it's not the normal custom, you got to recite in front of 10 men, and the modesty of a woman has to be indoors. Shiny Yoleda Shechayeves Bekorban. So he says, first of all, a woman who gives birth is going to be different. We know that she's Bechayev to bring a korban. Afal Gav de Ein Ze Korban Toda. And it's not a Korban Toda, but it's a Korban. Mashenke Bechol Chivi HaGoymel. Tilchula Alma Ein Chayvin Korban Toda. All of these things, when you're Chayev a Goymel, it's not true about all the other circumstances regarding a Gomel. You know, you don't always have to bring a Korban Toda. So the debate among the Achronim, it's only about bringing a Korban. Achronim discuss whether those who must recite a Gomel would have brought a Korban Toda in temple. In the Rishonim, Rashi, and the Rosh indicate that one would, though others may disagree. Rav Shlomo Zalman maintains here that all of these sources hold that there's a mitzvah to bring a thanks offering, but none hold that it's a requirement. Relatives do gather in her home, so they do make a bracha. A woman who has a miscarriage, there's no gathering of relatives in her home, so there's no bracha. He says the minig is not just that to do it in front of 10 women. That in Yerushalayim they read the Megillah with a bracha in front of 10 women. That was not the minig for a woman who gave birth regarding the Birchas HaGomel. This is referring to the bracha of Araves Rivenu, bracha of praise recited immediately after reading the Megillah, when the Megillah is read in the presence of 10 adult listeners. Whether or not this bracha is recited for an assembly of 10 women or men and women is subject to a controversy. There's no direct connection between this issue and that of the 10 people hearing Birchas HaGomel, but they're nonetheless thematically similar insofar as the requirement for 10 is a requirement for publication, but not necessarily a formal congregation of the Jewish people like Davar Shebekdusha. Purim Mishulash is the observance of Shushan Purim, the Purim reserved for walled cities, observed on the 15th of Adar and not on the 14th, under the unusual circumstances when the 15th of Adar is Shabbat. Because some of the obligations of Purim cannot be observed on Shabbat, the various mitzvahs of Purim are divided over 3 days, Friday, Shabbos, and Sunday. Back to the Shlomo Zalman, page 145. V'atam nira. The shani osam dikar mitzvah yakriya. The main mitzvah is the reading of the Megillah. Rak tzarch lios bepirsum, has to be done in public. The publication has to be done in front of people. The noshim eina bechlal zeh. You cannot call women bekalam. Uv Megillah nami im korn bizmana ein inin klal be'eser noshim. When you read the Megillah in the appropriate time, there's no special status to 10 women. Kimosha amru bebrachos mem heyam with beis mea noshi ketrei gavri damyan. 100 women are like 2 men. And we would not say the bracha of Aravis Rivein in front of only 10 women. Rav Avadia holds that one does recite this bracha after a Megillah reading at which 10 women are present. Do you know what they do at Joy's house?
I'm sure we say it. I'm sure she says it.
Yeah, but the halacha,
You just, Rav Avai just said you could,
that's true.
so let's go with that.
You guys are in Sfardim. My wife goes to a women's Megillah reading where a woman reads the Megillah, which is allowed for Purim, because Afen Hayu Bosvanei, so that, and they have a din of Shmiya, not Kriya, but they can, so that is an acceptable minig. But I was wondering what they do with this machlokas of the bracha after the Megillah reading of Aravis Rivenu. The Piskei Tshuva suggests that according to Sephardic custom, women recite the bracha before a minyan, either at home or from the women's section in the synagogue. According to Ashkenazic practice, he mentions that some women recite the bracha at home in the presence of a minyan after they've given birth. Some women refrain from reciting the bracha at all. The poskim matzino harbe binyan berachas hagomel lenoshim. Umaskanas advarim kenu. What's the final conclusion? Ashkenazim nechlaku b'minagim. Chelik mikilos Ashkenazim b'neim anshe Yerushalayim me'ayishuv hayosha nogim shemevi'im min l'beis hayoledes. 10 men are brought to the home of the woman who gave birth. U'marechas hagomel kashem shoymim. Omnam ach v'rak achrei leida. But that's only after childbirth. V'lo la'achesh nisrapu mikol machlashi, but not after getting healed from other illnesses. Yeser kihilas Ashkenazim, noagim she'en ha'isha merechas hagomel klav ikar. Women don't do it at all. El lifnei yitzias bebeisa. A woman who's given birth, and the first time she leaves her house to, let's say, go shopping, the divrei harishus are leches mitchil beis hakneses. She goes to shul v'shamas baruchu. She listens in the morning by Shachris, the Chazan saying baruchu v'oinem atziba baruch Hashem v'mavarach l'olam v'oed u'mechaveres l'odis Hashem yisbosh shegam ala kol tov. And she has kavana during the baruch Hashem v'mavarach that she says for to have hodah. The Pnei Halacha records a number of different practices reciting Birchas HaGomel for women. In some communities, women refrain from reciting it altogether, or they answer the bracha recited by their husbands. Rav Melamed favors the practice more prevalent in other communities, according to which women recite the bracha themselves. Let's see what the Rav Melamed says. Yoledes nechsheves chol. A woman who gave birth is considered a chol. And therefore, he says there's a chiyuv to recite the gomel when she recovers. There's risk. The proof that there's a risk is your mechal Shabbos to help a yoledes. After 7 days after childbirth, most women are already strong again. Sometimes it goes on for 30 days. And then she would recite it after 30 days. Certain communities, women were not makpi to say it at all. They feel uneasy because of modesty reasons to stand in front of 10 men. There are those they advise, let her stay in the Ezras Noshim. Or let her stand there. The husband will make the bracha for her. And she has kavana when the husband does it. The Beis Yosef says that the husband should not do it. The woman who is obligated to do it should do it herself. She should come to shul. She has to recite it. Before davening or after davening, the people stand quietly. The woman from the Ezras Noshim will recite. It's better if she comes during Kriyas HaTorah, and let her make the Birchas HaGomel like we do after Kriyas HaTorah. If 10 men meet up with her somewhere else, zacha bevrisa mila shel b'na, when she gave birth to a boy, and then there's going to be a bris milah, tavarch lifneim v'lo titzrach level basic tesis. She can recite the Birchas HaGomel in front of them, and she doesn't have to come to shul. Regarding the case of a woman after childbirth, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu rules that a woman should recite a Gomel in one of two ways: with the minyan in her home, or in a synagogue as suggested by Rabbi Lamed, or by listening to a man recite the bracha, and both have in mind to fulfill her obligation. That means not her husband, but somebody else who happens to be reciting a Birchas HaGomel. Says the Seder Kol Eliyahu. That's from Mordechai Eliyahu's Halacha Sefer. Isha Shavra Ala Shiva Yamim Aleda. A woman who has passed 7 days from her childbirth. V'chol Isha Shetzricha Levarech. And every woman needs to make the bracha. Tavarch HaGomel B'tzina B'fnei Asar Gvarim B'veitam. They should do it with 10 men in their home. Or Kushomeres Bezras Noshim, or when she's in the Ezras Noshim. Adam Shechai Levarch HaGomel Yochel Levarch L'chavin L'otzi B'varachos Rabbi Anoshim V'noshim. A man who is reciting the Birchas HaGomel can have in mind to be yotze other people. While he's reciting it, they have to have a kavanah to be yotze. If she's embarrassed to recite in front of 10 people, this is a good way to do it. 148. There's a dinner tonight for Bonei Olam. So some of our people are there. Yeah. On the basis of an incident recounted in the Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch allows for the possibility of a second person reciting Birchas HaGomel expressly on behalf of the person who is obligated to recite. In Birech Acher v'Amar Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam Asher Gmalcha Kol Tov. It doesn't say Asher Gmalani, but it says Asher Gmalcha Kol Tov v'Ana Amen. And the person answered Amen Yotzav v'Chenim Amar Brich Rachmona Malka Da'ama De'avin Lach, who saved, who has given you to us, the Avina De'avich Lach, the Yahavach Lon, the Ana Amen Yotzav. It is noteworthy that a person may recite Gomel and discharge another person's obligation. This is consistent with the more global principle of Shomer Ka'ona, which allows a person to recite a bracha on behalf of others, such that Amen may not even be necessary. However, in this case, the Shulchan Aruch strongly implies that the survivor may be exempted only if he said Amen. Why is Birchas HaGomel distinct in this way? So Rabbi Kiva Eger addresses this. Tzarech loimer. You can't just rely on Shomer Ka'ona. If he would recite the bracha, he would use a different nusach. Shigmalani koto. El da'idei amen, duhu kamoshu gamkein mishabechu moide yotze. Through the amen, he fulfills his obligation. Uvetur b'shem arosh, kosavatam, da'ach hashayne the davka sham avarich chayiv gamkein bebracha, az yotze hashomer. He wants to say, it's when the man who is making the bracha is chayiv himself to make a Birchas HaGomel, then the Shomer has b'lo niyas amen, without any niyas amen. Aval hacha shamavarich ein chayiv b'brachos v'tzarach davka lo niyas amen v'tzarachim. I was going to say something else, unless it's brought later on. We know that we have moedim d'Rabbanan. That means the shliach tzibur, when he says his moedim, we recite our own moedim. And the question is why? All the other brachos, we listen to him. Shomer Ka'ona, let's say, if somebody doesn't know Hebrew, why now all of a sudden do we have to recite our own nusach? So the standard answer is, when it comes to giving thanks, you have to give your own thanks. So we have our own nusach of Moed Rabbanon. We don't rely on the Shliach Tzibur. So I'm not sure why this doesn't violate that. And Bichlal, they shouldn't allow somebody. Now, if a person he cannot read Hebrew, I guess there's no choice. Okay, I don't know. That's something I was thinking about when I went through this. There's other examples like Shechianu. Well, no, we're Yotzei Shechianu for other people. Kriyas HaHallel, right? When you're in shul and the chazan starts off by saying the bracha, Likros HaHallel, we recite our own Hallel bracha. So some say, why do we do that? Because of the same issue, that Hallel V'Odah requires you yourself to say it. So according to Rabbi Kiva Eger, the one obligated to recite the bracha must do so while referring to his salvation in the first person. For this reason, the only way that one can fulfill the obligation without reciting a bracha in the first person is to respond Amen when someone else recites the bracha for him. But if the one reciting the bracha formulates his bracha in a way which refers to someone else, like he has bestowed every goodness upon him, then these words are not the words of the individual who has been saved. Such a bracha may be considered his own only if he clearly affirms Amen. And this is explained by the Stipler. Asfaru kach, the inyan shomer ka'oine, urak ka'oine oisan tevas sha'amra na'oimer. When the person who's reciting it says exactly what he's supposed to say. So this guy is using different language. He's saying it's for you. He's the guy who says Amen is agreeing. And on the words, and there's a nice biography of Rav Kanievsky. I'm sure many of you remember the hesped for Rav Kanievsky. I think it was in the late 80s, mid 80s. We had a lot of hespedim here in Los Angeles for the Stipler. Page 151, some machshava thoughts about Birchas HaGomer. As we have seen, the Rosh and other poskim determine some of the halachas of Birchas HaGomer on the basis of halachas of the Korban Todah, the thanks offering brought in the Beit HaMikdash. However, even for those who do not draw halachic conclusions from it, the Korban Todah may serve as an important model for understanding how a person should respond to salvation in one's life. Among the offerings listed in Vayikra, the Torah describes terms of the thanks offering. Im al todah yakrivenu. If you're going to bring a korban todah, v'ikriv al zevach hatodah chalos matzos plosh b'shemen. Besides bringing the animal, you have to bring loaves of unleavened bread mixed with oil, or kike matzos, wafers, meshuchim b'shamen, v'salos merbechas chalos plosh b'shamen. You actually bring 4 different kinds of loaves, 10 loaves of each of the 4 different types. So you have 40 loaves. Significantly, when explaining the circumstances under which a person would offer a thanks offering, Rashi identifies someone who has experienced one of the 4 situations familiar to us from the Bracha V'Gomel. What's more, he demonstrates that this is already indicated by the words of the critical chapter of Tehillim. Imal todah yakrivenu. Imal dvar hodal nation aselo kigon. Yordei ayam, travelers in the sea. Holchei midboros, travelers in the desert. Chavushe beis hasurim, people who are in prison. Choilish Nisrapet. These are the four classic ones for the Gomel. Shem Tzrichin Loidish, Shekosu Bayan, Yodul Hashem Chazdo, V'niflosav L'vnei Adam, V'yizbechu Zivchei Todah. And we have seen many references to the themes and language of Tehillim after it is first invoked in the Gemara cited above. Rashi's comment here is the first source which draws our attention to the verse's link between offering a sacrifice and expressing one's gratitude. Yodul Hashem Chazdov Niflosav L'vnei Adam, V'yizbechu Zivchei Todah V'yisapru Maseh Brina. According to these verses, those who have been saved from dangerous circumstances will not only thank Hashem for his kindness and tell others about his wonders, they will offer sacrifices. What's more, they will recount his deeds in song. The notion that a person is expected to sing as an expression of thanks is explored further elsewhere. The Gemara criticized Chizkiyahu HaMelech for failing to sing Hallel after he experienced Hashem's miracles, and this prevented him from becoming Mashiach. The Shulchan Aruch also rules that when a person recites the chapter Tehillim 100 daily as part of Sukkot Zimra, this should be done with a melody. Finally, it would seem that this concept is formative in the practice of many religious Zionist communities in Israel and worldwide to celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom Yishalayim in recognition of the great miracles that occurred upon the founding of the modern state of Israel and the victory and salvation during the 60s. The thanks offering is perhaps the greatest halachic model for showing our appreciation for Hashem's kindness and salvation. But as we have seen, the thanks offering does not consist of the sacrifice alone. A person is expected to tell others with emotional song about the kindness that Hashem has performed for him. This aspect of the Korban Todah helps to explain the curious requirement that the eaten portions of this Korban's meat must be accompanied by 40 loaves, as emphasized by the Nitziv in his commentary Ha'emek Dover. Ve'ainyan, the point of the Korban Todah is to recount Hashem's kindness. Yesh lavin hamamar she'yishalem nidro neged kol amo. The fact that he has to fulfill his vow in front of everybody, umazeh shvach. What kind of praise is that? Normally Hashem asks us to be modest. He wants to say, you need a lot of people to eat these 40 loaves. So it'll be recounted in front of a large group. Like we've explained before. Normally you can eat the shlomim for 2 days. Here, and most shlomim don't have any loaves. Here they gave you 40 loaves and only 1 day to eat it. And therefore you will be forced to recite the story about your saving from the miracle in front of a lot of people. As we saw regarding Birchas HaGomel, which is recited before a collection of people, an essential aspect of the Korban Todah that is to be shared with others. In this way, when a person acknowledges and thanks Hashem for the goodness bestowed upon him, he shares his fortune with those around him and sanctifies Hashem's name among the Jewish people.
I wonder if this is where the concept of a Sudas Hadah came about. So we all sit together for the 40 loaves, so that you all celebrate together and everyone eats together. I wonder if that's where the concept of a Sudas Hadah comes from.
Probably, because the shlomim was eaten by the family as part of the Suda.
Yep.
Gentlemen, I'm going to stop today so we can start the Hilchos of Shechianu next week with our group. Also give my voice. I have to lay in the Megillah this week, and I taught Daf Yomi before, so we're gonna call it a little short today. Everybody have a Freilich Purim, easy fast on Thursday, and we'll gather again next Tuesday at 8 o'clock.
Easy fast. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.